Alpha. My name is Kingsley. I'm super excited to be here. I'm going to be your instructor on a 3-part course on ShadCN. The purpose of this course is to teach you what you need to know to build modern web application fast and to ship at rocket speed. We're going to start with a 4-minute introduction into styling and ShadCN, and then we'll install the tools we need and we'll build our first components together. You ready? Let's go. If you have any experience building web application with modern frameworks like React, then you should know that styling can either be fun or painful depending on your approach. My goal with this introduction is to first give us some background about styling, and then I'm going to share with us ways we've been styling in the past and current times and show us how ShadCN fits into the picture. What is styling? Styling is a process of defining the layout and the appearance of a web page. Mostly anywhere you hear CSS, you hear HTML and vice versa. Reason because HTML and CSS work hand in hand. HTML is what defines the layout, but CSS is what describes the appearance of the layout created with HTML. Just as Sam Wright would say, HTML are just text on a piece of paper, but CSS now wetin go come inside, make that text fine, make am presentable, or make everything sharp. In summary, CSS describes the look and the feel of web pages. This is what makes button beautiful, makes layout neat, makes your text readable, and finally makes animation smooth. So if you want to build beautiful web experiences, CSS must be involved. We just spoke about how CSS is what we use for styling. That is true, but that's not the entire truth. The entire truth is that a lot of tools have come and gone for the purpose of improving the way we style modern web applications. Back in the day, there's what we call HTML styling. You might know it as inline styling, where we use HTML tags or inline styles to describe the look and presentation of HTML elements. The problem with this approach is that it is not maintainable. Say for instance, while working on a project, the look of a button is redesigned. You will have to trace through every single instance of the button created on your web project, and you would adjust the styling one by one. That's not very fun. Soon after, we were able to modularize CSS. This means we could take all of that inline styles and we can dump them in an external file. And we could use selectors like class names and IDs to make those styles reusable. This is good, but not great. The reason is because while styling or updating the look of a particular component, we stand the risk of updating the look and feel of a different component if not done carefully. Well, after years of styling this way, a better solution arrived, which is CSS in JavaScript. This was the era of styled components and emotion. The developers community were particularly excited about this one, but unfortunately we had to move on so quickly. This was good because it allowed us to obey the single responsibility principle. This means we could keep these stylings and the components that they affect in the same file, but there was performance cost. That is where utility first frameworks like Tailwind CSS changed the game. It is fast, it is reliable, and there's no need to write extra CSS. With Tailwind CSS, we're able to build components fast by using predefined utility class names. Well, Tailwind is powerful, yes, but the problem with Tailwind is that it can get repetitive. You see, components like nav, modals, forms, input buttons are common components across all web applications. You can save a lot of time if you don't have to build components like this every single time. That is where ShadCN comes in. So, what is ShadCN? ShadCN is a modern UI component library used for building customizable and accessible components fast. To explain to you what ShadCN is, I have to liken it to Bootstrap, except it is nothing like Bootstrap. Don't get me wrong, I have nothing against Bootstrap, the likes of Material UI. But the problem with these components is that they are highly opinionated. This means that they are very strict and they don't allow full customization. Because of this, in their era, we tend to find a lot of web projects looking alike. That was not a developer's problem. It was a tool problem. This component library does not allow us modify the components to suit the look and feel of a brand. And that is what ShadCN does differently. So why should you use ShadCN? It's simple, because you own your own code. Let me explain. When you install ShadCN or a ShadCN component, it stays in your code. This means you can modify, you can extend, you can refactor as you please without having to worry about any compatibility with any external dependency. So ShadCN lives in your code. It does not depend on any external dependency, and it is built on Tailwind and Redux, which means you get best of both worlds. Best in customization, best in accessibility. Enough introduction. Let's set up a project, install the necessary tools, and start our first component together. Alright, before we get started, let's go over the requirements. In this course, we will be practicing and building components with ShadCN using a modern web framework called Next.js. Right? The whole essence is to see how we can use this in a modern web framework. So we're going to be choosing Next.js for this. You can actually work with React or with Vue or any other framework, but I will use Next.js for this particular course. If you just want to follow along, I would recommend that you also follow along with Next.js so that everything I'm seeing is what you're going to be seeing. Another thing that you should note is we're going to be writing TypeScript on Next.js. So if you're someone who is coming from a JavaScript background, do not worry. There's really not a lot of disparities or differences between JavaScript and TypeScript. So you would be generally okay and you'll be able to follow along very well. Another thing you should be aware of is Tailwind. So if you've used Tailwind before, it will be a plus. But if you've not, don't fear. Would touch some things about Tailwind, at least the basics, so you understand how you can customize your ShadCN component using Tailwind CSS. And then finally, for IDE or a code editor, I recommend Visual Studio Code. You can get this installed by visiting code.visualstudio.com. You can have it installed on your Mac or on your Windows computer, whatever the operating system you're using is compatible with all. So I'm going to be using this for this course, and if you want to follow along, you're the type that could along while learning new stuff, I recommend you follow these stacks or tools that I've pointed out here today, and I recommend that you at least check this requirement that I've mentioned, which is you're able to understand JavaScript at least. You're able to style components with regular CSS, so you have ideas or you have an experience about styling a component for web. And finally, you just need to have the spirit of learning. If you're open to learning, then this course is for you. Now that we're done with the introduction and we've talked about the requirements for this course, we can actually proceed to get started. To set up the project, we actually have two options. One is to do it from ShadCN, and the second is to do it from Next.js. So for option one, we could just go to the ShadCN website and navigate over to docs and then to installation. And over here, we can see supported frameworks. So clicking here on Next.js, we see lines of um, commands and steps that we could run in order to set up a project with ShadCN components. For option two, we can go through the route of first of all going to the Nest website, go over to docs, then to installation, and we can see step-by-step procedure on how we can actually create a Next app. So after creating a Next app, we might want to run a command that would install ShadCN. So for the sake of this course and for the sake of those who might be learning how to use ShadCN on other frameworks, we're going to take the option 2. So I'm going to create a React app following the instructions from the next React app application website, and then I would install ShadCN as a package on the app. In order to create a Next.js application, we just have to use this command. The quickest way to create a Next.js app is using the create next app, which is exactly what we are going to do. It sets up everything automatically for you. Exactly. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to copy this and we're going to have to run it on our command. So you will have to target the folder where you want to keep your project. And for me, it's a folder called content folder. And I'm going to just paste this command here. And we have the app latest, which targets the most recent version of Next.js and have it installed for us. This might take a while. Yes, let's call it Shad practice or ShadCN practice. Yes, yes, of course, yes. If you say no here, then it will have the app directory structure. So I'm cool with the source structure. Yes, yes. Okay, let's go with the first option. I must apologize for the, the sound in the background. There's a live band performing at a bar just close to my place. So right here I can hear the entire sound. It feels like I'm literally in the bar. I just hope it's not coming through the mic. But if in case it's coming through the mic, I really apologize for that. I hope we're able to understand and follow along with or without the slight disturbance in the background. Okay, she's ready. All right, so now we will cd into the folder and we can run it. And I will just type code space dot to run up the VS Code. So it's going to open that folder on VS Code. Oh, right there. It's on my other monitor. So let's drag it into screen. All right, so what are we looking at? We're looking at a Next.js application that is pre-arranged or pre-created for us. We have our source folder over here, and within the source folder, we have the app folder. This is where our routing will be declared. We have the default page, and this is what we should see. All right, this serves as the index of the entire application, so it's the first thing we should see when we run the application. We have a git ignore file. We have the package JSON, which contains all of the dependencies that have been pre-installed for us, including the ESLint to the selected area and Tailwind CSS. So to run this, I'm going to use control and backtick on my Mac and run npm run dev. So the shortcut I just use right now opens up a terminal in the VS Code. Once you run this, it should start our development server on the browser. There, we have successfully created a new Next.js application. Now we have to do a couple things. First, I want to clean up this application. We don't need any of this. So I will target the page, the root page, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'll delete everything from name and the footer, everything. We don't need this. So what you're seeing here is a typical utility class names from Tailwind, and each of these perform a certain feature or a certain gives a certain look. Okay, so this div has some already predefined Tailwind CSS. So this is what I meant by the utility-based class names. Each of these class names has a certain utility. For example, we have the grid layout. The next class name explicitly describes the row heights of this grid. So we know we're going to be expecting 3 rows. The first row has the height of 20 pixels. The second row have the height of 1 fragment, and the last row has also 20 pixels. This means after you omit the first and the last, which are absolute values, the middle content should span across. So that is what we had under as children of this particular div. So we had the main and the footer, and I think there's another component if I'm not mistaken. So basically this administers the styling to it. Now this class here describes the alignment of the grid, and we have the justify item center as well, does the same thing, while this other guy here, the minimum height screen, well, that is very intuitive. I think that's the great part about Tailwind. You don't really need to study too much to understand it. So this is just saying the minimum height of this particular component, this particular div should be set to screen. So it's set to screen height. We have P for padding, so we're setting the padding. This is for the general padding, top, bottom, left, right, 8. Then we have the PB, which specifies the bottom padding, and this sets it to 20. Now you also need to know that this 8 here is not pointing to it. This 8 you see here does not represent 8 pixels. It actually represents 32 pixels. So that is 2 rems, and this 20 over here does not represent 20 pixels. It actually represents, if I'm not mistaken, about 80 pixels, which should be 5 rems. So the rem sizing we're using here is 16 pixels to 1 rem. So now over here we have the gap, which this describes the gap. The 16 here actually represents 4 rems. Let's see, there's a pattern. 8 represents 2, 16 represents 4, 20 represents 5. So it seems we have 4 for a rem, so 2 will represent half a rem. So this is a typical example of setting up a media query with Tailwind CSS. So this is saying we want this particular size or this particular utility to affect only screens that are bigger than small size. So you have to understand this is saying from small and above. So if we use MD here, we're saying from medium and above. I believe we have the large. So so right now let's go back to small and explain what is going on here. So this is saying on default we want the padding to be 8 top, 8 bottom, 8 left, 8 right, and then we specify an explicit value for the bottom padding, and we set it to 20, and we say the bottom padding to be 20. Remember, this 20 does not represent an explicit value for rem or pixels. We're not saying this is 20 pixels or 20 rem. This is just I think it represents 2 value for each of these, or rather 4 value for each of these represents a rem. So this is 5 rem, this is 4 rem. So we're saying we want the top, bottom, left, and right to be 2 rems. And we're saying over here that we want to override the bottom padding, and we want to make it 4 rems. And then we went ahead to say set another condition, which is as soon as we exceed the small screen size, which is above 640 pixels, we want the entire padding, top, bottom, left, and right, to be 5 rems. So we want this to be for bigger screens, obviously. This utility over here is just specifying that we want to use this exact font for the children of this component. So this is it in the basics of Tailwind CSS. There's a lot more Tailwind classes, but as we continue in this series, we should be able to, I will be able to expose you to some of them. But in your time, I recommend you go over to Tailwind CSS, go over to the docs, and indulge yourself. So if I put in a content here, say hello world, right? That's how they look. So we're seeing that it's currently being affected by the styling. That is, we have placed this literally on, I believe, the first row, it should be 20 pixel, and the item center and justify center is affecting it, hence why it's in the middle of that particular grid cell, the cell in the grid. So we're going to dismantle all of that. I do not want this grid. I'm going to get rid of it. Save and have a look. Since the grid is gone, there's no need for the alignments. I'll get rid of this. Have a look. Next, I think I will keep the screen height. For padding, I don't have issues with it. I'm going to leave everything else as is. In the next video, we're going to build the very first component using ShadCN. Okay, let's head over to ShadCN again. So we have to first install ShadCN before we can start using its components. So go over to ShadCN, then again to the docs and to installation. We've been here before. So I'm going to click on SJS. So it says here the following guide is for Tailwind version 4. If you're using Tailwind version 3, use this specified ShadCN. So let's confirm, what version of Tailwind are we currently using? So Tailwind, we're using version 4, so this is up to date. So next, it says to install ShadCN on your project, you have to run the init command to create a new Nest.js project. That's not what we want to do. Or to set up an existing one. So we want to set up an existing project. We're going to just copy this out of here and we'll go over to our VS Code. We're going to create a new window, a new terminal window, and we're going to paste it here. The reason why I had to create a new terminal window is I do not want to obstruct the development server. So we'll have it here on this terminal while I went over to this terminal to run new commands. Enter. Alright, do you want to proceed? Of course I want to proceed. Just let's go with neutral. How would you like to proceed? It looks like you are using React 19. Some packages may fail to install due to peer dependency issue. Okay, let's just go ahead with the first. Alright, we're all set up. Oh, beautiful. We ran into an issue. I love this. So now let's debug. It is really healthy to see a tutor run into troubles. It's really healthy because this is what the regular or the real life programming experience looks like. So now having installed ShadCN, it's complaining about something. Now let's listen to it. says error evaluating Node.js code. Okay, the error is happening at source app logo CSS. Let's have a look. Source app logo CSS. Okay, so what is wrong with logo? Cannot resolve TW animate CSS in this file. So I believe this is what it's talking about. So it looks like ShadCN doesn't just depend on Tailwind, it depends also on another package. So what we're going to do is we're going to install this. I'll come over here and run npm install tw animate css. Okay, so let's see, refresh, still there. Let's rerun the development server. I'm gonna close this. I close it by holding Control and pressing on C. So Control C just terminates the process. And I will just press the up arrow to go to the most recent command. And I'm going to run it again. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, we're good. Okay, so we've had the time to install Next.js, install ShadCN, and we've printed hello world with double R on our on our web page. We don't just want the hello world there. Let's put in some components from ShadCN there. We're going to be starting hot. I'm going to be starting with Accordion. So what is an accordion? An accordion is basically a UI component that lets users expand or collapse a certain section of content. You would usually see this in FAQs and certain pages or dashboard, anywhere actually, where you might want to save up some space but still want to give access, to details. This is an example of what an accordion looks like, and it is in fact created with ShadCN. So key components of the accordion is it has a header section, which is the effortless book gifting, for example, and it will have the content. So we have the header, we have the content, and you could create in such a way where when you hit the header, you want to collapse or expand the content, or you do it in a way where the drop down is the trigger itself. So I'm going to be showing us how to build components like this. Are you ready? To create an accordion, you have to go back to the docs. Everything goes back to the docs. So I'm going to go over to the components section, and there it is, accordion. Here's a sample accordion from ShadCN. This is what it looks like. When you click on the header, it expands. You click again, it collapses. So now let's read through the docs and find out how we can have this component on our code base. And then we can play with it and see how well or how much or how far we can get it customized. To have it on our code base, first thing we need to do is to install. Are we still installing? So this is what I was talking about in introduction. With ShadCN, there is no reliance in external dependencies. So with this, once we have this accordion installed, it will get the code for this accordion and fit it into the code base. You know what? Let me just show you how it works. I'm going to copy this, head over back to my code, close this, and I would go back to the second terminal. I don't want to obstruct the development terminal, and I will run it here. It is successfully installed. Notice where it placed the component within source folder, within the components folder, UI, then accordion. I would mostly recommend that for this reason, whenever you know you're going to be working with ShadCN, you want to install it at the beginning of the project. So obviously, if I come over to my file structure over here under source, Under components, I see this is a new component, a new folder that's been created called components. And within it, I have the UI folder, and that is where the accordion is placed. If I didn't add ShadCN in the beginning of this project, and maybe down the line, I already have a component called Accordion. When I install this component, ShadCN would have to override it. That is why I always recommend that you install ShadCN at the beginning of your project, so you don't override components that you must have spent a lot of time to build, just in case it clashes with the folder structure coming from ShadCN. So in this case, you have nothing to fear. Like, double tap on this, I have it opened, and you can see the entirety of this component. What makes this component work? Built with Tailwind CSS and Redux, it's all here in this component. So if in the future there's a new update with ShadCN, it doesn't concern me. My code should still run properly fine. I have no fear about compatibility with maybe some future updates coming from ShadCN or whatever, and I can easily go inside here and modify this code base as I please. I could refactor, I could add, I could remove things that I think is unnecessary, and I can give it my own look, feel, and this is the whole selling point with ShadCN. Even though it's a component library, the fact that it's fully customizable and the fact that you own your own code is what makes it the game changer, is what makes it better than any other thing out there right now. So let's figure out how to use this accordion. Yes, we have it installed, but if you look at the browser, look at our web page, we still have just hello world there. So we want to have to see accordions listed underneath here. So I'm going to go back here and learn about the usage. To use this, I have to import it. I'm going to copy this and I'll go to my page and I'll paste it here, the import statements. Go back to the usage again and I'll copy the rest of the code and put it under the return block and save. So I have my auto formatter enabled, so that is why every time I save it auto formats. I'm going to get rid of I'm going to close the terminal. Not get rid of it. I'm just going to close it temporarily so we have more room to play around this page. So back to the browser and I refresh. I should have my accordion. When I click on the header, it expands. When I click on it again, it contracts. Notice that the accordion is spanned from the from the far left to the far right. What we have around this component, around hello world and the accordion, is the padding that we have, the padding style that we give to the parent div. So I really do not enjoy having my accordion this lengthy. So this is a good opportunity to practice with Tailwind. So what I will do is I could decide to wrap this in a div. So I'm going to hold Command Shift P and I'll type wrap, enter, and I want to wrap it with a div, enter. We'll go over to the opening div and give it a class name, and I want the class name to say with. Let's see what options we have. I just realized that the Tailwind IntelliSense doesn't apply to Tailwind version 4. I might be mistaken, but for some reason I don't have access to the options of width I could give to this guy. So I'm just gonna wing it for now and just give it, say, 96. Let's see. Oh sweet, that's a good width. That's a good width. I love this. Oh good. Yes. So that looks good. So you see, with this we have used Tailwind to confine this to a maximum width. Alright, next we want to encapsulate this. I don't like this, it looks really ugly. I don't like that the import statement is really lengthy here. I don't like that in order to just print just one accordion, we have to write this many code. So what I would do is, I would go over to my components folder and I'll create a new folder there. I'll call this my components. Within my components, I will create my accordion. And I would go over here and take this import statement and move it here. I will create a new function, call it my accordion. And I want to return the entire of this. I'm gonna cut it out of here and paste it here. Nope, you know what? Let's take the entire thing, cut and paste. Let me double R again. Let's correct that. Next, we want to export this as default. Save. When I save this, you'll notice that on this page, the home page, we do not have the accordion. What we've successfully done is to take that accordion out of here and give it its own page or its own component, its own file, right? It's now modular. We can now import it here like so, my accordion. So I have the auto importer, and that is what auto imported is for me. How you can work on this in case you don't have those is you have your write the import statement, you write in the name of the component from. You start with your quote at we're starting. This at represents that we are starting from the roof, so it means we're starting from the app, right? We navigated into components, which is here, and then into UI, which is here, and then into my components, which is here, and then into my accordion, which is here. On second thoughts, I think to make things look cleaner on the folder structure, I'm going to drag my component out, move it out to the app. So we have app, my components, and components. Components and my components are on the same level so that we can leave everything coming from ShadCN here and everything we are customizing over here. And because of that, we have to change the import statement. Because of my extension, my auto importer extension, it has already corrected itself. So it's not targeted at the app. And from app to my components, and from my component, I have access to my accordion. Another way we could access this from the home, from this page, right? This is where we are. It's at the same level as this guy. We could just use the dot slash and it should still work. So let's save this and check our web page. Let's check the browser, and we have our accordion here. You can go the old style by just going at app, and it should point to the same component. So these are the two different ways we can point to a path on our file structure. This is the absolute way, and we have the relative way, which is making use of the double dot. You notice how over here in this sample, we're able to have 3 instances of an accordion. We have the receive your book, the book gifting, and the free delivery. So in our case, how do we do that? It's simple, right? We just go over here and do a copy paste. So now we have accordion 3 times. Let's see. Check the browser. Absolutely correct. That is how we do it. But the issue here is each of these instances have the same header and the same content. We don't want that. We want to be able to have 3 unique accordion information over here. How do you think we will achieve that? If you're guessing that we create 2 more components called my accordion 1, my accordion 2, my accordion 3, then you are wrong. That is not a good approach. I mean, it's gonna work, but it's a bad approach. Here's what we'll do. We can render the header and the body dynamically. How so? Let me show you. So see, I want to pass 2 props. 2 things, which is the header and the content. So I'll go over here, right? I'm going to replace this with props dot header, and I'm going to replace this with props dot content. Good. But TypeScript is complaining over here. It says that props implicitly has an any type. So when you do not explicitly specify a type to a variable, it assumes it to be the any type, and it assumes that implicitly. So we don't want that. That if you're working with JavaScript, this is not a problem. But if it's TypeScript, I mean, you have to listen to her. You don't want problems with her, trust me. So we're gonna have to specify what type. So you see the structure here, we are targeting the header and the props. So this means props is expected to be an object. I have both the header key and the content key. So I'm going to come over here and specify header, and I want it to be a string. String is a data type for text kinds of content. And we want to have a content, and we want to give it a string. Okay, we misspelled something again. Okay, sweet. TypeScript is cool with us on this file. But if you observe up here, the home page is bleeding. Let's go over there and find out. So it's complaining. TypeScript is complaining again. It's saying that the type is an object, empty object, is missing in the following properties. So it's expecting us to pass in the prop with the object, header, and content. So if you have any experience whatsoever working with frameworks like this, you know how to pass in your props. So we're going to go header equal to, I'm going to say something, right? And next we'll go to content, and I'm going to say something. Now I'm going to comment this guy out temporarily and comment this guy out temporarily. So make sure that nothing is being complained about, and I'm going to get rid of this import statement. I mean, we don't have any image on this file right now. So let's check the browser and confirm. Something. Good. So we can repeat what we've done for that accordion for the others. So I'm going to copy this and I'll paste it here and here. I'll comment that as well. Let's check. Something. Let's make sure that they're actually rendering different content. So I'll say this is something 1, and this is content 1. This will be something 2 and content 2. This would be something 3, and this should be content 3. Let's save that and check. Something 1, something 2, something 3. Perfect. Let's take things a step further. Say on this particular page, you want 10 questions. What the file will look like is we're going to have 10 instances of this accordion, and each of them will have the header and content for something 1, 2, 3, 4, down to something 10. And that will make this page look ugly. So here's what we'll do in cases like that. We're going to have to modify what this component would expect so that we can pass in the entire data of what we want to render on the accordion at once. Here's what I mean. So I'm going to create an array here. I'm going to call it const. Use constant to initialize the variable because we do not want to change this variable. There are other alternatives for declaring variables like var and let. That is not in the scope of this course. I expect that you already know this. So I'm going to call this FAQ. Let's work with FAQ. FAQ, not FAZ. And it's going to be an array. And FAQ should be an array that contains several questions. So each should have a header and a content. So I'm going to start with the first object. I'm going to go header something 1, obviously, content. I'll call it content 1 as well. I'm going to introduce something new. I'm going to call it ID. So this should be something unique that points to this particular object in the array. So every object in the array should have a unique ID, right? Next, I'm going to copy and paste this 10 times, right? But let's not get to 10. It's going to be very tiring to teach through every single one of them one by one. But I believe you get the gist. We're going to have this to be 4, 4, and 4. And I can pass this FAQ into our accordion component. So I'm going to get rid of header and contents like so. Now we're going to pass in data. Use my object literal and pass in FAQ. Sweet. Now we don't need these two guys. Can get rid of them. Save. Now the issue is TypeScript is complaining again. And you know we always have to listen to TypeScript. It's not like we have an option. So it's saying that data is an array of a certain type of object, but it's not assignable to a type which is an object. So it's saying that my accordion component is expecting an object with just header and content. But what we're passing to it is an array of objects containing header, content, and ID. So obviously there's a mismatch of the data type. So let's solve that. We're going to go over here. We're going to make some tweak to the props. So now we don't want the props to expect this. We want it to expect an array of it. And this array should also have an ID that should be a string as well. Okay, we're not done, are we? So we're going to have to wrap this in an object literal and specify that, hey, there is a certain prop called data that should have this certain type. Okay, so that is it. Next, we want to be able to map data that we're expecting from props into this component. So what we'll do is we're going to wrap this also in object literals so that we can have some custom JavaScript in there, right? If you're working with JSX, if you want to have some custom JavaScript, you need to introduce the curly braces, just the way we've passed in props the header here earlier, but that is now redundant. So let's correct it. So we're going to pass here props dot data dot map, right? And I'm going to wrap the entire content within the wrap statement. And inside the wrap method, we're expecting we expect a callback. So this is what it should look like. So notice that it stopped complaining. So we have the props, or targeting the data within the props, which is an array, and map is a method, it's an array method, right? The method with array, and we're going to be mapping the array. So it's possible because it's an array. If I take down this block bracket, right, which represents an array, you see that it's going to complain that, hey, the property map or the method map does not exist for an object. It's an array specific method. So we're going to keep that back. So since it's expecting the data to be an array, right? It's fine. TypeScript is not going to complain. It's going to say, well, since data is an array, I'll give you access to map, which is a method for arrays. I hope that makes sense. So the map takes in a callback function, and this is the callback function. Callback function returns the component, right? So but what we want to do is we want to be able to pick each items from this data and map them into this component we're returning. How we can do it is by coming over here and specify the item, right? So this item points to each object within the array called data. And if we have access to the object, like so, see, we can now point to the dynamic content coming from each of those objects. So how we do it, we'll come over here, we can get rid of the props now. Then we'll target item dot header. Over here, same thing, item dot content. Now go to the browser, refresh. Good, we have something 1, something 2, something 3, and something 4. Go back. So it's good practice that anytime you perform a map, you give to the component being returned a unique key. So we're going to do exactly that. I'll give it a new key, and we're going to make sure it's something dynamic. I'm going to use item.id, and I'm going to pair it up with item dot header. There are ways we can make this look cleaner. One thing we can do here is by coming here to specify the type and call this my accordion props. Right? And it should be equal to all of this. I'm going to cut this and put it here. And I will take this type I've declared here, and I'll put it here. I still think there's something we can do. We can directly destructure props from here and take out the data and get rid of this. So there's no need to point to props at this level. So wait. So it should work. Great. Great. One final thing. We would have to update this value, right? This value points to a unique item within the array. So we'll just do this as well, and we are done. So this is how you fully customize an accordion from ShadCN. So from the home page, it's possible to have an accordion for FAQ, and we could also have an accordion for actually I'm blank. Let's say you have accordion for another FAQ, probably after some elements in that same page, right? So we just did that without having to lift a finger. I mean, we lifted a finger, but I mean, you get the gist, right? All right. If you're still watching up to this point, congratulations. You've really done well. like really well. Like having to stick around, listen to this boring voice up to this moment, you've done well. I really hope that everything we've shared today is very clear and easy for you to follow. But for this section of this video, I'm going to be stepping outside of the code a bit. I'm going to talk about some extensions, some tools that can help you increase your productivity and efficiency while using VS Code. While I write, you might have noticed some auto formatting going on as I save my project in order to demo. The tool used for that is Prettier. If you want to get started with Prettier, you can just go over to the extension tab on your VS Code and search Prettier. Spelled Prettier. That's an ER. Yep, Prettier code formatter. Another thing I believe is something that you should be aware of is the tool in charge of some auto-completing or used for generating some code snippets. I've not used it yet, but I might use it more as we proceed. It's good that we are conversant with it right now at this point. So if you're interested, you can look up simple. Why do I always mistake things? Simple React snippets. Yep, that is it. So this is the component, this is the extension by Borg Holland. Really great tool. So let's inspect, and you see that we have a lot of shortcuts that you could use to generate snippets. So class components, the one I use very often is the SFC, which is the stateless function component. A good example is what we use in building my accordion component. And this is a sample, a good example is this stateless functional component. Yes. So anyway, I really recommend this tool. Have it to really help you speed up your coding process. Then we have Accordion. Wow. Accordion, which is currently rebranded as Windsurf, right? I think there's an E somewhere. So says the modern code is for power. Okay. Formerly Codium. Ah, that's what I was looking for. Windsurf. Windsurf. For some reason, I always forget the name Windsurf. Codium just works for me. You can just search Windsurf or Codium to get this particular extension. It's completely free. Completely free. It's an AI tool that helps autocomplete, give you code suggestion. Might have seen a bit of that in the previous videos. Another thing I want to introduce you is in case you admire my team and you really like it, you can look for IU Mirage, IU, right? Install IU and maybe it comes with the group of a good set of themes, right? So light one, the dark ones, it's really dark ones. This one here is the Mirage, so that's what I'm currently using. Okay, let's see which other tool have I not spoken about. The IntelliSense. Talk about Tailwind IntelliSense. A very good tool to have is the IntelliSense. You can see as I hover around this, it's giving me some CSS translations of those utility classes. So I did try this earlier and it didn't work. I found out that the reason is because I had not updated my IntelliSense. Given that we're using the Tailwind version 4, which is really hot at the time of creating this course, like it just came out. So I read through the release information or the release material, and I found out that majority of the way it behaves is not changed. Mostly what is changed in the configuration. So fingers crossed, hoping nothing breaks or nothing behaves differently as we continue with this course. But if you're interested, you can just search Tailwind IntelliSense, right? Oh, there it is, Tailwind CSS IntelliSense. I just updated it recently outside of the recording time. So that is really also an important tool to have. It also supports auto completion. For example, let's say I want to add a padding here. I can use my control and space to drop down supported suggestions for especially utility class names that comes with like a certain value. So you notice we have 9, 10, 11. There's no 13. So if you put the 13 there, obviously you won't see the result of your class name. That's because it's not supported. So having this will really help you a lot to make sure you do not miss it. You always hit it correctly. Hit it right. I wanted to say something cool, but okay. So that is it. Really happy that you stay still around for this course. I'm really excited. I hope you are too. We still have some couple of things to talk about. I'll see you in the next video. The next component we are going to be working with is the alert component. We head over to the ShadCN website, go over to docs, then you scroll to the components section and you find alerts. It's the second thing. So obviously we're not going to be talking too much about the implementation of this one. Just the way we started with Accordion, we're going to repeat it for alerts. Let me copy this, go to my code, open up my terminal, paste. The component is installed and it's installed in the source components UI folder. So over here, components UI. So we had Accordion here, and after running that command, we have the alert. And this contains all of the code concerning the alert. Now let's take a look at the usage. Under usage, we have to import the alert. And then we'll copy the usage and paste it in the return body. Let's get rid of one of these accordion. Just paste it right underneath the accordion. Save. Good. But we have a little issue. Cannot find the name terminal. What do you think is wrong here? I have an idea. But let's go back to the documentation and follow things step by step. So in the documentation, the terminal was not imported in this imported statement. So we have to find where this terminal is coming from. Let's scroll back up. I'm going to take a look at the sample code usage. You notice this imports the component from ShadCN, but this imports the icon from Lucid React. So we'll go to Lucid React. There you go. We'll look at the icons. So Lucid React has a lot of icons. This is one of the best resources for free icons. So I'm going to go over here and search for one. Let's take an example. So I like this one. Let's use this one. So over here, you see the icon in action. So you can see how to import this these icons. You see how you import the icons in React, for example. So we're just going to copy this and paste it here. And we can copy a sample usage and paste here. And because this guy is still complaining, right, about terminal, we're going to comment it out for now. Of course, we'll come back to it. Now let's see the browser and see what happens. You see our alerts displayed here. Let's do something about the width. We want it to stay in the same width with the accordion. Do you have any idea what we should do? Yes, that's right. So we're going to go over here to the parent component and we can set a max width. How do we do that? W, of course. Then put it to 96, just like we did for the accordion component. But this time around, we want it to apply to all of its children. That is why we're putting it on the parent div. To get rid of the paddings. We don't want the paddings no more. The gap is not needed because we're getting rid of the grid. Let's see, sort of padding, let's leave this at margin. Now let's go and check. All right, we're looking good. All right, so this is how you create an alert. So now let's bring back terminal. Now we clearly see where it's coming from. It's coming from the Lucid React icon component. We can clearly simply just replace it, shield alert to terminal. We can get rid of this and leave this. Do you observe that the Lucid React icons also support uh, Tailwind CSS? So hover on this and you should see the IntelliSense take charge and show you what this is in pure CSS. So this compatibility with Tailwind CSS is what makes Lucid React first options when it comes to working with icons on your custom components. So let's have a look to make sure everything works fine. Go back to the browser and there you go. So we've completely and successfully recreated this alert. Now let's go to the bottom. We have more things to learn about this. So this alert comes in two types. So two variants. We have the default and we have the destructive. So let's see how we can play with the variants. So back to this, we can take a look at an example code. So the variant is passed in here on the parent wrapper of the component. So we're going to do that as well. Come over here and we say variants. Destructive. Let's see. Oh, great. So that is how you work with the alert component. So here's what I want you to do. A little exercise. I want you to modularize the alert component. I want you to go over here to my components folder, create a new component there called my alert. Take everything that we use to create the alert component here on the home page and transfer it to this new component called my alert. When you're done, I want you to import my alert into the home page and we should have this render exactly as is. Okay, does that sound clear enough? I want you to pause the video, give it 5 minutes of your time, complete it, come back to the video and continue watching. Okay. All right, I believe that by now you will have attempted to modularize this particular component. I'm going to do it on screen, but I'm going to be doing it really fast and hopefully you are able to get it correctly. If you don't, this will serve as a correction. So I'm going to go over here, create my new component, my alert, add the TypeScript extension. I'm going to use the simple code snippets and allow it to generate the code for me. Here I want to just return the component, right? And I want the import statement, including that of the icons. I want them here. Awesome. So I'm gonna come here. First, I want to import my alert from. So let's maintain the convention. Use the ads app. Allow the autocomplete. I think it knows what it's doing. So wait. Now back to the browser. Good. Let's take it a step further. I want to be able to influence what variant of the alert, what variant the alert is going to be from here. And also I want to be able to influence what value shows up in the alert. So that way I can have multiple alerts on this level and I can specify explicitly what kind of data I want to appear on the alert. Are you ready? Let's do that. First, we'll go ahead and pass in the props. First, I want to be able to pass in a variant prop, right? And let's call it destructive for now. Next, I want to be able to pass in a title. So this will represent the title of the alert. Finally, I want to pass in the body of the alert. Okay, no, that should be equal to, and I'm going to call this, let's just copy what we have here. I'm going to copy and paste it. Maybe a string. I actually don't need this curly braces. I don't need them here either. I'll go over and copy this and put it here. Heads up. We don't need this as well. But just as expected, TypeScript is going to complain, and it's complaint. Its complaint is valid. It's saying that, hey, you're passing some kind of prop that is not assignable to that type on the other end. So we're going to go over to the other end and do the what we need to do. So I'm going to declare props, and here I want to destructure the variants. So here's a sample object destructuring. I'm going to take the variants, okay, then the title and the body. For props. Okay. Next, I want to come over here and dynamically pass. What do we pass here? The title, correct? And then here, we want to pass in the body. And here, we want to pass in the variants. You're on point. But despite everything, TypeScript is still complaining. Do you have any idea why it's complaining? Let's check. So it's saying props is implicitly any type. So we need to explicitly define its type. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define a new type. I'm going to call it my alert props, right? And I'm going to give it variant should be either destructive or default, right? Next, I'm going to give it the title to be string and body to be string. Sweet. Then over here, I'm going to pass in I'm going to properly annotate this data. So it looks like we're all good. We've properly passed in the variant props, the title and the body props, and we've properly structured those props, and we have passed them dynamically into this component. So let's save, back to the browser. Looks good. One way to test again, let's duplicate this component, and this time set this one to default. Let's check. Good. What if no variant was passed? What happens? So let's get rid of this. It's complaining, but we want this component to behave in such a way where it's possible to not specify a variant. And when that happens, we'll want a default variant. What do we do? So I'm going to go back here to alert, and I'm going to put a question mark here to infer that we do not necessarily need this component. And I'll come over here. I'll use the OR operator to say if variant doesn't exist, I want you to default to, well, default. I'm going to save this back to the browser, refresh, and we're good. So what is this and why does it work? So what is this OR operator and why does it work? Well, if you're hearing about this for the first time, don't fright. It's super simple. It's very intuitive, I promise. The OR operator would return the first truthy value when two values are compared. So what we're doing here, we're saying variant or default. So what we're saying here is if variant is a falsy, obviously it's going to pick the first truthy value. But if variant is a truthy, it's going to return the first truthy value. Does that make sense? So if I say here should be false, it's always going to return default. Let's go to the browser and confirm. So now in the browser, we should see two default alert components. See? But if we set this back to variant and we pass in the destructive here, it means that at that point, this is no longer a falsy, it's a string. So a string that contains text is not a falsy. So if it's a truthy, it returns it and it breaks the statement immediately. Or if it's a falsy, it compares and checks the other value to find out which of them is truthy and returns the first truthy statement it finds. Okay, so we can actually concatenate this on and on, right? So it works. So that's how that works. So another operator you should be aware of is the AND operator. We describe the AND operator in JavaScript with the ampersand. So what this does is if both statements is not true, it does not proceed. So hence, if these two values being compared are truthy value, it returns true, else it will return false. So and in the case where both values are truthy, it will return the last value. Okay, let's do a quick example to find out. So we're going to log something out here. So I want us to log true ampersand hello. And let's return this back to the OR operator. Save this. Now watch out for the console. I'm going to go over here and take a look at the console. Go over here to the console tab, and you can see over here it says hello. Now both value are truthies. That is why I return the last truthy value. But if this were an OR operator, it will return true. So it returns the first truthy value. If both are falsy, empty string is a type of falsy value with JavaScript. Nothing is returned. If both are falsy and we use the AND operator, it will return false. So it does not proceed. So in summary, with the AND operator, it does not proceed unless the two statements being compared are truthy. But with the OR operator, it returns the first truthy value. So back to our use case. We're going to get rid of this, and we know this works. An alternative solution to this, if the OR and AND operator is confusing to you, is we can define a default value when destructuring the variance property. So we could do this. We say we want variant to be equal to default, right? And we can get rid of this. So this should behave the exact same way. So if I save this and nothing changes here, it means that this particular component is going to be destructive. Now this component that does not have a variant being passed, right, is going to be default. The reason why it's not complaining is because we have the question mark saying this is optional, and anytime it's optional, we want it to default. So, well, default. So let's check. Let's refresh. Great. All right. I want us to take this a step further. So far in this series, we've not had any reason to modify directly the component that is being downloaded straight from ShadCN. So we're going to do something different for this particular component. Say we are not satisfied with this component. We want to add a third one, like so, and call it, we're going to use the or, say warning, right? So we want to have destructive, default, and warning. You can see clearly this component does not support that. If you go back to the browser, we have the destructive red, the default, basically default colors. I want to add another one that we'll call the warning type that would have yellow. So we'll have like a warning color. So think yellow is the color for warning. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to make this component support our new variant type. So I'm going to go into it now. So I'm going to hold on command and click on the component to open it up as a tab. So I can clearly see here is a component we're trying to affect, and this is how we pass in the variants. Now over here you see we're passing the variant as some sort of variable into the class name, and we also see that we have a variant type. So we're going to go into this guy. So in here we have variants, default, destructive. Exactly. So this is where we're going to specify the new type, the new variant we want to work with. So let's just collapse this window and I'm going to copy destructive and I'll paste it here. And I'll rename this to warning. Okay. Next, we want to rename this to, this is text destructive. Let's see what this points to. Okay, the IntelliSense is not coming up here, but we're going to just set the text to a custom color. So usually from the color code that is most famous for web development, which is the hex code, we can actually decode it into three parts, right? Let me show you. So the hash is to specify that, hey, here we're about to specify a hex code. The first 2 digits is a hexadecimal that describes red. The second two is a hexadecimal that describes green, and the last one is for blue, so hence RGB. So these are the 3 primary colors for light. Obviously the monitor, the screens we have on our phones, on our laptops, on the computers generally are a light technology. So it conforms to the laws of light in terms of how they are mixed together and what they form. So we have the RGB as a primary color for light, and if I want to get yellow, I'm going to have to put a value for red and a value for green. So red and green should give us yellow. So FF is the highest value you can get for red. FF is also the highest value you can get for green. So each of these double digits, the highest value is FF, which represents I think 255, which represents 255 in decimal, but in hex is FF. So this is the highest number and the lowest is 00. So I'm going to put B blue at 00. I don't want any of the blue. So if we save this, doing some quick experiments to find some things out. Let's save this, right? And then we'll come over here and apply the same color. So by the way, this is a typical Tailwind syntax to put in a custom color. So over here, see, I'm gonna put it here. So obviously destructive is a variable that is described in the tailwind.config, which apparently is no longer here. Due to the new update to Tailwind CSS. So let's see global CSS, see if it's specified here. I'll search for it quickly. Say destructive. There it is. So this is where we describe the destructive color code. I go down here, you can see the color code here over there. So I'm not really familiar with this color type, so I will just prefer not to touch it. So we're going to go over here. I will go over here and then just have to continue with my custom color. Then over here, similarly, I added the custom color here as well. I'm going to save this, and instantly it has stopped complaining about the new variant type, right? Do you know why it stopped? It's because we added, not you, because we added the warning on, as part of the options for the variants. So similarly, I'm going to add another component. I'm going to copy and paste this guy, and I'll just copy the variant prop and pass it here and give it warning. Okay, now let's find out. So I'm gonna go over here and you can see it works great. So we're seeing everything yellow. So because we maxed out the colors for red and green, we're getting the brightest form of yellow. So what I'll do is I'll tweak it a bit so that we get more of an orange, right? So I want more of the, we'll have to keep more of the red and reduce the green. So I'm going to reduce this to like a say E0, right? E0. Let's see. E0 should be, no, what? I don't want to do the math here. But let's see. So obviously, see it's getting clearer. So let's just, I think I like that color, so we'll stick with it. So I'm going to repeat it here as well. So, all right. So we have successfully created a new variant. The red for destructive, the default, and the orange for warning. Next, we will be working on the alert dialog. Not to be confused with the basic alert box of Stone Age JavaScript. We're talking about an alert box. Just a modal that pops up to reconfirm an action. Just basically when you want to demand the user's attention before they can continue with a certain action, alert dialog is the one to go to. Okay, so this is a typical example. This is straight from the ShadCN docs. So we're going to have to wire this up on our application. The procedure is the same. You have a command you use to download or install the component. Next, you have the import statement and then you copy the usage code and you paste it on your return statement. So I want you to go ahead and do this. Pause this video, try this, add this component into your project. When you're done, play the video and continue watching. Okay, welcome back. I believe that you have at least given this a shot. If you were stuck, or you couldn't figure it out, you can watch this part of the video. Otherwise, you can just skip this part. Because I'm just going to be doing exactly that. So I'm going to copy this, go to my code, open terminal, paste it. Observe that under here on the components folder, we do not have the alert dialog. I'll proceed now and run the command. Okay, so as soon as we're done installing it, observe two things were installed. That was a bit unexpected. We had the alert dialog and we have the button. And if you go back to the command, it clearly says alert dialog. So why is it that we are having the button being installed? Like it clearly said it here that it also installed the button. We didn't ask it to do that. Why would it do that? Let's find out. If you go over here to alert dialog, you see that it has a strong dependence on the button component. So hence why you had to install the button component as well. Okay, now we have that question out of the way. Let's proceed. So I'm going to go over to the home page, close my terminal, go back to the docs, copy the import statement, I'll paste it here. As a matter of fact, let's just move this directly into its own component file. get rid of it from here. Go into my components, create a new file. I'm gonna call it my alert dialog.tsx. So on the stateless functional components snippet, go ahead and write my alert. Give the component a name. On the return, I want to return exactly this for now. And I want to properly import those dependencies. So paste them here. Good. I'll go over to my home page, import my alert dialog, take this, and I will go here and add it to the return. My alert dialog. There you go. Sweet. Now back to the browser. It's there. So when I click on this, it should open the dialog. Cancel or continue, you should close it. Great. Right. The next reasonable thing to do is to render these values dynamically. I want to render the header and the body dynamically. So how do we do that? This is something we've gone over before. But for the sake of repetition, we're going to go ahead to do it again. Repetition is good. If you didn't get the gist already. Alright, so I'm going to go over here and I want you to expect a prop, and I want this prop to contain, so I'm going to destructure it in advance. I want it to contain a header. I also want it to contain the content. Right? So the header goes here. And the content goes here. Content. Yep. And you know what? On second thought, we need something here as well. So I'm going to pass in trigger. I'm going to call it trigger. That just makes sense. I'm going to put it here. Good. So this is TypeScript complaining. I will know why it's complaining. So you just attend to that. We need to specify the type. Alert dialog props. And this should have a header and a trigger. So I want the trigger to be a React node. Reasons to be explained soon. So I'm going to just pass this properly here, or rather annotate the props properly here. So when I save this, I find out that this instance of the component in the home page is complaining that it does not have the data it's looking for. So we're going to do exactly that. I'm going to give a header. My hands are getting sleepy. We have the header, we have the content, right? Restring. Then we have the trigger. And I'm going to call it open for now. Okay. So under the header, let's make this a string. And I want these values that we have here. So I'm just going to come here and copy them. Okay. Then let's copy the content. So the trigger says open. Now TypeScript is at peace with this. So let's go back to the browser. Open. We have our value here rendered dynamically correctly. To make sure it's working, let's change something. Let's change this to, instead of open, let's say show dialog. Cancel. See that trigger has changed. We can take it a step further by sending in a different component as a trigger. I'm going to put that in the curly braces and paste. Save. So look, this is our new trigger. Sweet. But I do not like how this looks. So this looks ugly. A better alternative would be this. And copy this, paste, get rid of this, get rid of this, get rid of the self-closing, and have the closing tag. And pass the trigger in here as the body, as a child component. This obviously looks better than this. So now we have to go back into the component and modify its behavior from this to this. Okay, so how do we do that? We're going to have to employ the children prop. This is like a default prop in React, and Nest.js supports it as well. So I'm going to pass these children here. So we want the children to be a React node. And I save this, come over here. Now notice that this guy is no longer the one complaining, but rather this guy is the one complaining. So it's saying it's not finding the props, right? So I'm going to wipe it. We actually do not need it anymore. So when I come over here, behavior is still the same, right? Sweet. One thing we could do to make this code look better is we could take this destructuring and put it here. Get rid of this. And we should still get the exact same result. Okay, let's put this alert dialog into a real life use case. Are you ready? In a typical use case, we want, for example, admins to have access to a certain part of the app or have access to perform certain actions. And we probably do not want the regular users to have similar clearance or similar access. So what we're going to do is we're going to dynamically reveal a trigger that only an admin can see. Are you ready? This should be fun, right? Let's get to it. So how would you want to approach this? First, we do not want an alert to trigger the pop-up. What we want to trigger it is a button. So I'm going to go back to the docs. I'm going to search for button and have a look at a sample use case. So there'll be no need to run this command. We already have button installed. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to put it here. Go back to the instruction. We have the usage over here. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to make that the new trigger. But I take this one out and put it back where it belongs. So let's have a look. Okay, good. So we have a button that triggers this, and the button should say delete user accounts. Let's see. Let's make the button look bolder. So I'm going to make this primary. It's complaining about the variant type. Let's find out why. So what variant does it support? We have the default, destructive, outline, secondary. Alright, let's go with default then. Let's see what default looks like. Great. I love it. It's perfect. You know what? I am not satisfied yet. I want it to have an icon. So I'm going to consult my browser. Go over to the seed icon and I'm going to search for a delete. Say a trash. This is trash. Ooh, shredder, I like this one. Let's take this. So I want to see in action, and I want to copy the import statement. Too easy, man, too easy. Paste this. Then I want to take this and also paste it where I need it, which is here, right? Then save this. Let's see. Our shredder is there. Sweet. Just in case, let's give it an explicit height and an explicit width, so we're not surprised in the future. So I'm going to use Tailwind for that. I'm going to say height should be 4 represent 1 rem, and width should be 4 represent 1 rem. If you're in doubt, you hover, and the IntelliSense should let you know 1 rem 16 pixels. Sweet. Alright, what else have we learned that we can deploy here? Okay, so next thing, I want to be able to determine who is online. Who exactly is it that is about to take this action? Who is using this product? What type of clearance does this user have right now? So what we could do to manage that is the typical use state. So I believe you should be conversant with what hooks are, but just in case you're not, let's go over it. So we're going to be talking about the React use state hook. It's what we use for state management. What I'm going to put here is role. I'm going to set role to let's say use state, right? Light or to import, and I'm going to put in, let's say user, and this is how you import. This is how you import the use state. Typically, I'm going to put it on top so I can always find it in case I need to import more hooks. Another thing I want to do is I want to explicitly define the type of roles that exist. So I'm going to define a type here. I'm going to call this type. I'm going to call it role. It's not a problem. It's just role type. Then capital R role. I'm going to call it user or admin. Perfect. So I can now say if this user can I render this component dynamically, and say if this user is not an admin, or if this user is an admin, then I want you to render this component. Save. The role is admin, then render this. If the role is user, do not render it. So let's see. So use state. ECMAScript had an error. You're importing a component that needs use state. This hook only works in client component. Oh, okay, of course. So easy fix, right? Come over to the top and write use client. All right. So right now we do not see the button, and when we change this to admin, right, we can find the button. So we have successfully dynamically rendered the trigger. One thing I noticed is we described the type without using it. So let's fix that. So this is to say that on every occasion, this key row can only take in the value user or admin. We can take this a step further so that we can properly test on the browser interface. So I'm going to use a different hook called the use search params. So with that, I can pass in a value, right? A param, as it's called, through the URL. And I can use it to influence what is rendered on that URL. Are you ready? Let's give it a shot. So when I say const, I have to declare it params. Alright, use search param. So right now it's not imported. You can just go back to the import statement here. Don't need it. And I will include it here. So it's saying the React has no export member called use params. Okay, so I guess it's not a hook from React. So, and this suspect would be the next navigation. No, what is this? Not work. Cannot find module in next. Oh, of course, of course. I'm sorry for using Next.js here, not Next.js. Okay, so we are getting params from here, and let's say I want to get param row from params.get. We want to get the value, and want to target the param key called row. Okay, to make sure we're getting the key correctly. So I'm going to log it. Row. Let's see. Go to the console. Currently is null. I'm going to come over here, add a question mark, and type row equals, and let's see Kingsley, because Kingsley is a row. It's definitely a row. Sweet. So we are pointing to it correctly. So now let's do something with it. Okay, so we're gonna have to use the use effect hook so that we can key into some certain moment and update the row state. So I want to do it in such a way where on default it's a user until it's explicitly specified on the URL. So to do that, we're definitely gonna need use effect hook. So I'm gonna go over here. First thing, import it, then use it. So in here, let's take this console here, and our trigger is param row. So what I'm saying is every time we notice a value in param row, we want to re-render the entire DOM. Okay, that's what this is going to do for us. And when we re-render the entire DOM, I want to see what is inside. Okay, so let's check and see. Refresh. So Kingsley, sweet. So if this changes, right, it refreshes the DOM. with or without the use effect, I think it's gonna do that. But the reason why I have the use effect here is so that I can now set the new row to as well. Exactly. So I can get rid of this, and let's find out what happens. Notice the button does not appear. Have a look. Now notice that for a split second the button appeared, but as soon as we're able to extract the value on these params, we got rid of the button. So here's what we can do. First, I want the user type to be default as user, and secondly, I actually need to make sure this is a type user. So it's a type row, right? We only have two types of user or two types of row, the user and the admin. So I'll leave it at user. You notice the glitch doesn't occur, right? But if I make this admin, it should come up. I mean, what's going on?
A few moments later.
So apparently, those strings, those are quotes rather, the part of the string, and because of that, the value is not compatible, so it's not able to compare accurately. So I've gotten rid of that. I'm going to keep bringing back this type annotation here. I can get rid of this console log, right? And everything should be working fine. Good. Web admin, and when it is user is gone. When it's admin, it's back. I'm excited to bring you to the end of part one of this course. So far, we've been able to set up a new SJS project. We've been able to set up ShadCN in an existing project, and it showed us how we could set it up in a new project. Also, we learned how to install new ShadCN components. We learned how to modularize them into their own files, like we did with the Accordion. We also learned how to pass in props through these modularized components so that we can render the content of these components dynamically. We also learned how we could modify the code that was being installed from ShadCN for cases where we want to add new variants to the component style, like we did with Dialog. Here we introduced a new variant called the warning variant, and we styled it accordingly. Finally, we learned how to render more complex components dynamically, like we did with my alert dialog, where we passed in a different ShadCN component as a children prop into our custom my alert dialog component. Here, as you can see, we're passing in button as a children component into my alert dialog. We also took and learned a bit of other things like how to use the lucid icons, how to set up prop types for TypeScript, how to map through an array to render several instances of the same component. We also learned how to use some hooks like useState and useEffect, and we also learned how to use the useSearch params hook from the next navigation modules that help us, take in values from the URL. I hope it's been fun so far. I'll see you in the next one.